Good afternoon, everybody. How are y'all? For everyone in Memphis, happy 901 day. Um, for if you could tell by the name, yeah, I'm from Tennessee. Was born and raised in Johnson City, and went to college at Memphis. Yeah, so, um, and obviously growing up in Johnson City, which is a Vols Haven. I am obviously a die-hard Tennessee fan. So yeah, there's really nothing to say about yesterday. They have no excuses. That was a disgraceful performance. I mean, I have no words for it. I mean, I don't even. I just don't want to even talk about it. There's all the context in the world shows how bad it was, and like I think, and what's disturbing is Coach Pruitt said that he said that like he didn't question like their effort, which you're almost hoping that he wasn't throwing his players, that he was just saying that to not throw his players under the bus, because they were actually putting in serious effort and they respected Georgia State, and that was the outcome. That's disturbing. Um, it to me, I mean, it's just all there's so much to show, evidence that shows just how disgraceful of a loss it was, and I don't want to even talk about it. It's pretty much rock bottom for one of the greatest programs in college football history. So I don't want to talk about the game. What I do want to talk about is something else. A few things. Now, number one is the former Vols coach, Jeremy Pruitt's predecessor, Butch Jones. Now, for those who want to understand, Butch Jones was the coach of the Tennessee Vols from 2013 to 2017. His records overall were 5-7, 7-6, 9-4, 9-4. Got fired with a 4-6 record in 2017. So anyway, Vols fans ran Butch Jones out of town. The media ran Butch Jones out of town. Like the media assaulted Butch Jones. The media clown Butch Jones. And Vols fans ran him out of town. But really, I was one of the only Vols fans around that didn't want to see Butch Jones fired. I don't understand why people act like Butch Jones was such a bad coach. Butch Jones, when you consider where Tennessee was when he took over, for those who do not understand where Tennessee was, Tennessee had just had to deal with the Derek Dooley awfulness of three terrible seasons. One was mostly due to injuries, but whatever. The bottom line is after the Derek Dooley mistake. So the Vols had a 5-7 season, 1-7 in the SEC. So they had a back-to-back 5-7 seasons with a 1-7 record in the SEC. It's like, it's the thing is like in 2011 they had that though, but it was kind of somewhat understandable because of how tough the schedule was they played, as well as the fact that Justin Hunter, their star receiver, got hurt in the Florida game, early in the Florida game, and Tyler Bray got missed significant time, missed 5 games that year. Now, and you could foresee had they been healthy, maybe they could have won, at least been bowl eligible. And maybe if Bray had been fully healthy and not rusty, they beat. Who knows? But you could understand going 5-7 and 1-7 in the SEC when you look at the schedule they had to play and the injuries. So, but for them to go 5-7 again the next year with a healthy Bray and Hunter, if I remember, Yeah, I think Hunter was on the team. I remember their leading receiver from 2011 had to transfer to like Tennessee State or something. Anyway, so anyway, they went 5-7, 1-7 in the SEC. Dooley got fired as he should have, and the Vols lost a ton of good players from a team that had a losing record, that struggled to beat Troy that year. That gave up 48 points and like over 700 yards or something to Troy. They won, barely winning. I mean, at least they won that game, unlike yesterday. But the point is, and from a team that had won just 5 games, that had a losing record, been 1-7 in the SEC, they lost their star quarterback, their top two, lost Cordell Patterson, I think Hunter. So they lost a ton of talent from a team that won 5 games. So Butch Jones inherited a program that had hit rock bottom, at least rock bottom at that point in time. And so he inherited a dumpster fire. Now, his first year there, they once again went 5-7. The only difference is they went 2-6 in the SEC. So they had a third straight 5-7 season. But given what Butch Jones inherited, it wasn't a surprise. They did beat a legit South Carolina team that year that won 11 games, and they did compete with Georgia. They lost on. They had a fluky play, all bounced out of bounds that hurt them against a good Georgia team that was somewhat healthy, I think, when they played. I don't remember, because I know they had to deal with a lot that year. It's to... So they weren't that bad his first date. They weren't good, but when you saw promise, I thought, did a decent job his first year there. The next year they improved, went 7-6, a winning record and a bowl game in the best conference in college football. And again, it wasn't anything spectacular, but where they were, you saw progress. You made progress, and the program took a step in the right direction in 2014. They were reasonably competitive with Alabama. They got behind 27-0, and that's what ultimately sunk them. But they got all the way back reasonably close. Only lost by 2 touchdowns to Alabama that year. You clearly saw they competed with Georgia that year, lost by the skin of their teeth. Florida wasn't that good that year, so losing by the skin of their teeth to them at that time, that's nothing impressive. But they played Oklahoma that year, got routed. But you saw competitiveness. Now, Butch Jones' third year there is when they really took a step in the right direction. They won 9 games. They won their last 6 games. Now, that season was one of the more frustrating at times seasons because they blew a huge lead to Oklahoma that year. They had an awful loss to Florida where they blew a huge lead there. And one of their other losses, and they lost to Arkansas by the skin. They blew 3 leads. They legit could have won 12 games that year. But anyway, they played a brutally tough schedule, playing 2 eventual college football playoff teams. But overall, it was a good season for the Vols. And promise, they then won 9 games again in 2016. They had some ugly moments, like struggling to beat Appalachian State again. At least they beat Appalachian State. And considering what happened yesterday, so the program was on the right track after the 2016 season. They had back-to-back 9-win seasons, and Butch Jones had pretty much brought Tennessee back to respectability after the Derek Dooley era. Because you look at the Vols, they went 5-7 in Fulmer's last year. They had 2 bad seasons in Fulmer's last 4 years. Alright, but while that was the case, he left Lane Kiffin. What really hurt this program was that Lane Kiffin, after a strong first year there, left for USC. Like, if Lane Kiffin had never left for USC. The Vols probably might still be fine. In fact, there was times in 2017, which we'll get to more of that in a minute. People were like they should hire Lane Kiffin back. But anyway, to the point. So anyway, after the 2016 season, they lost a lot of players. Lost Josh Dobbs, Alvin Kamara, and Derek Barnett. So they lost three of their best players from the 2016 team. And so they struggled somewhat in 2017. And that's when Vols fans all of a sudden came out of nowhere and the media started hammering that and ran Butch out of town. Now, even had they gone, they probably still lose those two games there to Vanderbilt and because they now and LSU finished 4-8, but still, one bad year and you're gonna fire Butch Jones? No, Butch Jones should not have been fired from Tennessee. He got screwed over. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't understand why when you consider the job he had done. 2017 was rough, and I could argue part of the reason the Vols struggled in 2017 was because when your coach is on the hot seat and you're having to deal with that stuff, I could see that affecting you. But the team, you look at it, heading into the 2017 season, Butch Jones had done a good job. He had brought the program back to some respectability after Derek Dooley ran them into the ground. So, I mean, they weren't great again. And I'm not saying Butch Jones was a great coach because he's not a great coach, but there was promise again in Tennessee. They had been brought back to respectability after by Butch Jones. But because he was having one bad season, fans ran him out of town. And, yeah. And so, it's like, I guess you can't have a bad season anymore, so that's my take. So they should have never, ever fired Butch Jones. That was they fucked up there. Now, speaking of Butch Jones, another thing that's gonna become an issue, obviously people are going to bring it up, is the whole Greg Schiano thing, the whole Greg Schiano situation, the Greg Schiano disaster. So, for those who don't know, after the Vols fired Butch Jones, they ultimately were about to hire Greg Schiano. It was a borderline done deal. Now, Greg Schiano is a good coach, in my opinion. Everyone looks at his record at, like, maybe Rutgers, 55, 28, 48 Bs. It's Rutgers. Of course his record wasn't that great at Rutgers. He did as good of a job as you can expect at Rutgers. I mean, name the time. You look at some of the players he was able to bring to Rutgers. Mohamed Sanu, Devin McCourty, Ray Rice. I'm sure Jason McCourty went there. I mean, he made Rutgers a respectable program. Rutgers was deep in the abyss when he took over, and they're deep in the abyss now. So he did a good job at Rutgers. His coaching reputation took a hit in Tampa Bay, but everyone, we're talking about Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay I don't seem to understand. Tampa Bay is one of the biggest clown shows in sports that nobody talks about. It's like they're a clown show. Nobody talks about how big of a mess Tampa Bay is. They haven't made the playoffs since 2007. They have just 2 winning seasons since John Gruden got fired. And they've finished in last place 8 times since 2009. And they've had 7 last place finishes in 8 years. So a lot of people are failing Tampa Bay. And he got he got screwed over because of the whole Josh Freeman situation. There was silliness going on with Josh Freeman, and everyone blamed Greg Schiano for it, but no, Josh Freeman was a mess before Greg Schiano took over. And What did Josh Freeman do after he left Tampa Bay? Nothing. He went to the Vikings for a game. He stunk up the joint. He was out of the league entirely in 2014. He made like one or two starts with the Dolphins, Colts, whatever in 2015. He's not in the NFL anymore. I mean, so Josh Freeman didn't do anything after leaving Schiano. So we all blamed Greg Schiano for what happened in Tampa Bay. But you know, I mean, but it's not. It doesn't appear to be Schiano because Josh Freeman's failed everywhere he went in the NFL. There was a lot of talk about him not working hard, about him being a little lazy and a little, he had he was involved in some drug problem, drug joint program. I don't know, but Josh Freeman was his own fault. He was a disaster, and he has no one to blame but himself. That's where Greg Schiano got his hit and his coaching reputation destroyed because Josh Freeman. Well, why? What did Josh Freeman do after he left? And I like Lovie Smith. I think Lovie Smith's a good coach, but the Bucs regressed even more the year after Schiano left. They arguably they got better in some areas, and they won 2 fewer games. So had their win total cut in half. So anyway, so Schiano's a good coach. However, Tennessee fans, they didn't want Schiano as the coach, and the biggest reason why was because of a link to the Penn State situation. For those who alright, what happened was it was a line by Mike McQueary that Greg Schiano came into his office white as a ghost because he had seen Jerry Sandusky. Alright, and it was because of that, and so basically Hawaii's assumption was that he covered up that at Penn State. It was a whole murky situation. That's the only ties he has to that scandal was a statement that came out nearly 5 years after the scandal broke about him being tied. That's his only tie to the situation, but I don't know, folks. I was okay with the hire originally, but I was also okay once I found out that he had ties to the Penn State scandal. I was okay with the Vols not choosing him because while I thought he was a good coach and that would have been a good hire for the Vols, and I don't think they lose to Georgia fucking State yesterday with Greg Schiano's coach or Butch Jones, but that's not here or there. So anyway, so I don't know. I just don't know, folks. It's a whole murky situation, but to me, while I think that would have been a good hire, at the same time, look, we don't know the full story of any involvement he had with the Penn State scandal. I mean, the only ties, again, was was a line by Mike McQueary that Schiano one day came into his office white as a ghost. That's the only tie he had to the scandal. So, I mean, but it was too risky, and that's why that most people didn't want him. And I understand that. Granted, again, it was only one line, and it's that's all, not overwhelming evidence, so who knows. But really, it's really hard to condemn the Vols for not, at least for Vols fans ruining Schiano getting hired. You really can't condemn him too much because when you take things into proper context. Now, the person who really ruined Tennessee was John Curry for firing Butch Jones and messing up things. There's a reason he got fired because, you know, Tennessee football was still a good program after Lane Kiffin left. After Lane Kiffin left, the program was on the upswing when he left. Dooley ran it into the ground. Um, and um, and then Jones built it back up to respectability, and then John Curry took over as AD in January 2017. He ruined the program by getting rid of Butch Jones. So the Vols are going to have to find a coach now. Pruitt, his first year with the Vols wasn't terrible. They had a losing record, didn't go bowling, but at the same time, they did beat Auburn, they did beat Kentucky. You know, they were a young team. It was a rebuild, so it was about as much as you could expect from a coach. However, he better buckle down. The Vols better. I mean, the Vols, they play BYU next. The Vols better get their act together. Or then, yeah, Pruitt's going to be in big trouble. It's too early to condemn him and say the Vols fucked up with that hire, but anyway. So those are my overall thoughts. The main reason Tennessee's in the situation they're in right now is because John Curry ruined the program by firing Butch Jones. The Vols screwed up by firing Butch Jones, and that's just I don't really think they screwed up the Schiano. I think the Vols would have had a better record last year with Schiano, and I don't think they lose to Georgia State with Schiano. But again, it's hard. There are times where you have to look at principles and understand that. Yeah. But of course, the Vols would have even been in the situation with Schiano had they not fired Butch Jones. So those are the thoughts on my program, on my team. Hopefully the Vols get it together and they leave this. I mean, granted, they could win the SEC. And of course, now if they win the SEC, they could win their next 11 games, go to Atlanta, beat Alabama again in the SEC championship game. They might not even make the playoff. And quite honestly, they probably wouldn't deserve to go to the playoff after losing there. But, I mean, no matter, the Vols could win every game they play this season, and all it's going to be remembered for is losing Georgia State, and really that's fair. So those are my thoughts on the program. Hopefully they turn it around, and hopefully they will return to greatness sooner rather than later. So thank you very much. Also, shout out to U of M, my alma mater, for beating Ole Miss, or I have a name I like to call Ole Miss, but it's a little immature. But yeah. So anyway, so thank you for watching. Thank you for watching.